Hey guys, I just wanted to give you a guide for Pet Sorcs because a couple of you have been asking. So, as far as from Homestead to Morrowind goes, I haven't really changed much. Um, Build particularly is pretty much exactly the same. So I use 5 Necropotents because pets are still the most fucking overpowered thing. I use Alhambra still. I use 6 light, 1 heavy, just because I need a little bit of extra sustain at this point, because as you know, Magicka costs have gone through the roof since they changed the CP, and you use a fuck ton of Magicka. So you want to have a little bit more sustain. If not, you want to go all light, just because the resource changes are that bad at this point. But I use spell damage on all my jewelry still. You can get away with it on Mad Stalks. I don't think you can really get away with it on anything else. Um, not efficiently anyway. I don't have any non-set staves at the moment. Otherwise, I would use them. But I use Berserker enchant on the front. That's really strong. And then I use flame damage. I would use shock damage, but I'm a bit fucking lazy at the moment. I haven't really got everything sorted. I use flame damage because I used to use burning spellweave, and I'd try to proc burning spellweave as much as possible, and I did that with flame damage. But I'm using necropotence now, so I would change that to shock damage. Just because you want to proc the minor vulnerability that shock does from concussed, and enchants do that as well. So you pretty much want the minor vulnerability up as much as you can, and just having a shock enchant would push that even more. Um, but yeah, that's the armor set I use. So not really much has changed. I used 6-1 before Morrowind even released, and yeah, like the damage has dropped a little bit, but I don't think it's dropped as much as I expected. As far as skills go, the you're obviously thinking, what the fuck are you doing having a matriarch on your bar? Well, let me explain this to you, right? So the changes have had a pretty big effect on your ability to use spam balls or casting things. So the matriarch actually gives you a decent amount of DPS for when it's up, and it's free. The DPS is free, and that's the main thing. You don't have to use any Magicka. You only have to use Magicka if it gets killed, and you have to cast it again. In that case, it's quite expensive, but if you're skilled enough and you know what things Pet Sorcs can be fine in, then you really won't have any issues with that. And that just takes a little practice as well. But there are some trials, especially more of Lacage. There's a couple of spots where pets will not be very resourceful in there. So in that case, I would switch to Twice Spawn Star at this point. I wouldn't bother with Burning Spellweave. You can go Scathing Mage as well. Both of those are fine, but you'd have to change your field a little bit, especially the skills. But as far as skills go, I have my dot bar, and then I have my what's left of my spammables bar. But what I basically do is I cast Conduit, Familiar, Blockade, and then Daedric Prey, and I switch over. Uh, I I would have Shield here usually. It's because my DPS test. So you run Ward and Crushing Shock and light on the front bar just for the little extra damage. You could probably run Valnegas there if you have a lot of spell power pots and make sure you use them at all the right times. You get a little bit extra magicka that way. But yeah, it's up to you. If you want to be cheap like me, by all means do that. Or if you want to bring the power, by all means. In places where you wouldn't use the matriarch, I would probably you could go stuff like Power Surge, Boundless Storm, Endless Fury is a good one. I use this over Mage's Wrath now because of the Magicka changes or the resource changes. Any time that you can gain Magicka back is a good time, honestly. And because the amount of ad fights that are in these trials these days, it's a fucking lot of ads, and having the ability to get Magicka back, more Magicka back than what it costs to cast, is good. Though you'd probably have to cast it a few times to kill whatever you're fighting, so that would be a bit annoying. That's probably what I'd use. You could also use just in a light on the back bar. You could also use Surge if you want to be even more cheap. Um, yeah, you have a couple of options. Um, you could even use impulse, I suppose. But yeah, the options are there. You could double shield if you want. I mean, if you want to be an unkillable beast, you might as well do that. Um, but that's basically what I use for now. And my rotation is I put all my dots down, and then I do 2 hits of light attack and crushing shock, and then I do 1 heavy attack, and that will usually give me good resource sustain, because I will show you my CP and it's based around this. So for my CP, especially for the blue, I use Woller's Morrowind calculator, Woella, I think that's what he calls himself. Um, his is better just because for some reason the one that Asayre and some other dude recommended, that one does not factor in Master at Arms for some reason. And there were no points being put into that, and there were 100 points being put into Elfborn, and I don't think that's very effective, so I went with Wowellers because that was a bit more straightforward. So I have 56 in Elemental Defender, fucking Elemental Expert. I have 48 in Elfborn. There are jump points now, so you want to watch out for that. The one you had the biggest problem is the one that I've got a lot into, Thaumaturge. A lot of your damage is dots, and right now I've got 23.4. It would still equal 23%, as if you never had the 0.4%. Even if you had 23.9, it would still give you 23% more damage. So that's what I'm talking about jump points. You probably want about 79 or 78 in Thaumaturge to make sure you get a good value. Actually, you probably need something like fucking 84. Jesus. But the only reason I have 75 into this is because of the Exploiter passive, which is still really strong. Even if you do heavy attack to take it away, it still comes back pretty quickly, and it still gives you a good amount of DPS bonus. So I think it's worth having. Otherwise, you'd have about 60-ish in Thaumaturge, and you've put the rest into Master at Arms at that point, and that gives you a decent DPS increase as well. But the difference between having that much in Thaumaturge isn't really that much. Like that, it's not relevant, honestly. And having the Exploiter passive is really good for me. To be honest, you do get more. I feel like we've become more tanky with the changes to CP in the red tree. So it used to be that you'd put in 90 into Hardy and Elemental Defender, and you get about 23% damage mitigation for both sources. But now there are 4 different ones. So there's Magic, or Elemental, or like Physical, and the damage source for that. And now there's also like Thick-Skinned has basically stayed the same, and Ironclad has become the opposite of Master at Arms. And effectively, these two together, plus these two, because the points are front loaded now, you actually get here you get 28% damage mitigation, up from about whatever it used to be. No, it's down for this, but for direct damage, it's a lot higher. It's about 32% damage mitigation for direct attacks, and that's a lot. That is a lot. Jump points are important here as well. So I just have 2 in light armor. Cause fucking whatever. I don't know what else to put in. Light armor, I do not think gets affected by diminishing returns. Jump points. So you should be fine putting X points into that. But just make sure you've got this kind of stuff into these. It'll obviously also depend on the trial as well. People will start to sort the points out depending on that. And here's the annoying part, right? So Magician's been taken away, so rip the 18% reduced magical cost. Now I still use 100 in Arcanist. I also use 100 in Tenacity because as far as restoring Magicka goes, there's nothing else that you can get that will give you anything. So I just put it all into this and heavy attack, and it does quite well actually. I put the rest into Tumbling. I like to roll dodge a lot because I think it looks cool. So I try and roll dodge as much as I can. But there are fights where Shadow Ward will actually be, more beneficial, because for instance, the second boss for VAA, you spend a lot of that fight blocking, because there's a certain mechanic there that pretty much wants you to block. In that case, it'll be more beneficial using this. But do bear in mind, it still is affected by jump points, as far as I can see. All of these are. So just be aware of that. So this one's more personal preference. You can put them in tumbling. And I have found that does help a little bit, especially for fights where roll dodging shit is important. There aren't really any I can bring to mind, but I'm sure you can think, like, you yourself can think of one that roll dodging is important on. VAA is one where I roll dodge as well. So yeah, that's my CP, and to be honest with you, I don't really enjoy heavy attacking as much as I fucking do now. But whatever. So what I do is I cast Liquid first, a light attack, cast Familiar, a light attack, cast Blockade, a light attack, and curse, and then I switch. And then I do light attack, force pulse, light attack, force pulse, and then I heavy attack. So that's my rotation usually. And then I shield whenever I need to. So, and then you've also got a heal. Just use that whenever you need to. So that. Over, Conduit, Familiar, Blockade, Curse, 2 light attack pulses, heavy attack. Look at that, last tick of heavy attack gets you magic back. And then when I'm usually at below 40% magicka, I do 2 heavy attacks instead of 1 heavy attack and 2 false pulses. Otherwise, you start being unable to cast everything else, and that becomes a big problem. And obviously you got to factor in potions as well. So that's basically it. And when you use another build, at that point you would have started using execute instead of force pulse, and that would have killed it a little quicker. Yeah, that's the basic rundown of my build. So yeah, have fun, lads.